Daf Lamed Aleph and Beis will begin Lamed Aleph and Aleph right at the bottom of the two dots. Amar Rabba Barav Huna Kol Adam Sheyesh Beit Torah Ve'ein Bo Yiras Shamayim. If a person has Torah but no Yiras Shamayim, Daimele Gizbar, he's compared to a treasure. Shemasu L'Mafteichos HaPnimius, and they gave him the keys to the inner chamber. U'Mafteichos HaChitzainos Lo Yimosru Lo. And they, but however, did not give him the keys to the outer chamber. He has the keys to the inner chamber, to where the treasures are stored. And he has the keys to get there, but he doesn't have the keys to the outer chamber. He'll never get to be able to even to use the keys for the inner chamber. He'll never be able to get into the inner chamber. So too, if he has Torah, he has the treasure of Torah, but if he doesn't have Yiras Shamayim, it's not going to lead him to the Torah, to the proper observance of mitzvahs and the proper understanding and Torah, and it won't endure. Machris Rav Yana Chavala, the Leslie Tira, he's Machris, he proclaimed that Chavala, it's a shame for a person. He does not have a Tira Darta, the Leslie Darta. He does not have a courtyard. Chavala, the Leslie Darta, V'Tira Darta Ovid. But he's making a gate, he makes a gate to get to the courtyard. He's making a gate to get to a courtyard, but he has no chotzer. He has no courtyard. Similarly, if a person, he's learning Torah, a learning Torah that will come to bring him to Dveikus B'Hashem. But if he doesn't have Yiras Shamayim, he doesn't have the Chasser, he doesn't have the courtyard, he'll not come, he won't be able to come to Dveikus and the Rebbeinu Shalom. So really these are two aspects of Yiras Shamayim. The first one is that without Yiras Shamayim, he won't get the proper observance of mitzvahs, the kiyum of mitzvahs, and learning of the Torah. The second one is that what we're saying, Rav Yana is saying that Yiras Shamayim, there's another aspect to it as well. It not only facilitates the kiyum of mitzvahs and learning of Torah, but the higher level of Yiras Shamayim is Dveikus and the Rebbeinu Shalom, which the Torah, learning the Torah facilitates that, but without the higher level of Yiras Shamayim, he won't come to the Chotzer, he doesn't have a Chotzer, he doesn't come to Dveikus and the Rebbeinu Shalom. The tachlis of the Brias oil with creation, the world, the purpose is Yiras Shamayim. Shenemar ve'Elokim also she'yir milfonah. Elokim created, the world is created for Yiras Shamayim, that they'll have fear of heaven. Rav Simon, Rabbi Lazar, Havi Yaseh, Chalif Vazel, Rabbi Yaakov, Bar Yaakov, Amalachar Lechavre, one said to the other, Neika Mekame the Gavar Dachal Chatoinu. Let's stand up before him, because he's a person that has Yiras Achet. He's a person that has Yiras Shamayim. So let's stand up for him and give him that covet. Amalei Yidach, the other one said, Neika Mekame, let's stand up before him, the Gavar Bar Orion, that he's a Talmud Chacham, he learned Torah. Amalei said to him, Aminallah, Ano, I said to you, the Gavar Dachil Chatoinu. I told you that he's so great, that he's a Yiras Shamayim. Va'amatli, and Amalei at, and you tell me, Bar Orionu? I told you that's something greater, that is a Yiras Shamayim. We should give him covet and stand up for him first, because he has even a greater attribute. He's a Yiras Shamayim. You're telling me that he's a Bar Ter? So obviously one held that being a Yiras Shamayim is the greater Madrega. This time the Rabbi Elazar who Dama the Gavar Dachel Chatoiner. It's Mistabra to say that Rabbi Elazar is the one that said that the Yiras Shamayim, the one who has a fear of a chet, is the higher Madrega. Dam Rav Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Elazar Ein Lo Yikadosh Baruch Hu Lama Ela Yiras Shamayim Bilvad. All that Kadosh Baruch has in the world, all of it, the whole world, the meaning of it and the importance of it to Rebbeinu Shalom is Yiras Shamayim. Shenemar, V'ata Yisrael, Ma'ashem Lekef HaShoel Mi'imach Ki Im L'Yira. What does he ask from you? Only Yiras Shamayim. That's what he wants. What he wants, the singular thing that he wants is Yiras Shamayim. Uksiv Vayemer La'adam Hein Yiras Hashem Hi Chachma. It says Vayemer La'adam Hein Yiras Hashem Hi Chachma Shekim B'Loshen Yevani Karim La'achas Hein. This time. In Lashon Yavani, it's when Hein means one. So this is the one thing. This is the singular thing that he wants is Yiras Shamayim. Unfortunately, we have this in several places that other languages indicate what a meaning of Lashon Kodesh is as well, like L'toitov has been Einecha. And the Chazkuni and others say that originally the world, there was one Lashon, was Lashon HaKodesh. The Dor HaFlaga, there was scattering around. There's different lashonos, different languages, but embedded in the different languages is Lashon HaKodesh. So sometimes you have in other lashonos, in other languages, there are words, and Chazal knew that those words, the makor, the source of that word, really was, the source was Lashon HaKodesh. So what we're bringing over here is that this word in Greek, this hein in Greek, the source of it is achas, is one from Lashon HaKodesh. Then, therefore, the pasuk, when it says that, we say that this hein on the pasuk, hein yiras Hashem hi chachma, the one singular thing the Rabbeinu Shalom wants is chachma. Says, don't be a great Rasha, don't do a lot of rishos. So harbe hu lo lirshi, you shouldn't do much rishos, hama'at lirsha, but to do a little bit, you could do. Hella, what's the pshat is elami shachal shum v'reicha naidif. If a person eats garlic and therefore he has bad breath, yachser v'yachal shum hacher v'hei reicha naidif, should he eat more and that his breath should be even worse? Meaning, the idea is that sometimes people do things and they do things that they regret, they're embarrassed, and they begin to get depressed about it, and they are miyayish, and they get forlorn, and they give up, and they get despondent, and then they throw up their hands and they say, forget it, I'm such and such anyway, and I'm not going to be a great person anyway, I'm not going to be a tzaddik anyway, and they give up, and then they let themselves go. So the drosha is that al tirsha harbe, even if a person did rishos, but don't continue to do it. Don't do it harbe. Certainly not that you should do it, or could do it a little bit. I'd be a small rasha. But if a person was, and if you did some rishos, don't be a rasha harbe, don't continue, stop, and don't give up. Darsh Rava Barav Ula Maidachsi Ki Ein Chartzuvas Lamois Ubari Ulam for the Rishoyim. There's no Chartzuvas, they don't tie themselves up, restrain themselves. Misa, their death, the Yem Misa doesn't restrain them. And it's Bori Ulam, and their hearts are open and great like an Ulam, like a hall, like a banquet hall. Amar Kodesh Baruch Leidan L'Shoyim Shein V'Charein V'Atzei Miyam Misa. Not only the Rishoyim, bad enough that they're not afraid of the Yom Misa. They should be petrified of the Yom Misa. They're doing chatoim, they're doing rishus and oilam haza. They should be petrified what's awaiting them in oilam haba, but they're not. But even worse, el shalibim more lahem keulam. But they have, their hearts they're feeling good and open and tranquil, and have the tranquility like an open banquet hall, like something that's open and there's ravchas, and they're not worried even from the Yom Misa, even as their Misa approaches, and it doesn't cause them to have any fear. This is their way, and this is their foolishness, their folly. They know that they're awaiting them is Misa, and what's awaiting them is Gehenna. However, they have fat on their kidneys, their wisdom, they become foolish, and they don't think through it properly. Maybe you think that they forgot about their affairs, and they forgot that there's a Gehenna. They talk about their end, and they talk about it confidently in a relaxed way. They know they did chatoim, they know the rishoyim, there's no Gehenna, it doesn't bother them. That's to the extent of how foolish they are and how arrogant they are, that the Yom Misa and the punishment that's awaiting them does not cause them to have fear. Returning to the halach in the Mishnah that we learned, that the Mishnah says, Chasal aner, Chasal Hashem, Chasal Psila. If a person extinguished the flame because he wanted to preserve the ner, he wanted to preserve the receptacle, he wanted to preserve the oil or the wick, so it says, Ksa, on these cases, he's chayiv. Rav Yosi poiter bekulam, he says he potter on all of them except from the basila because he's making a charcoal. So as we discussed earlier, there's a machlokes, a basic fundamental machlokes in Hilchos Shabbos that we have throughout the Masechta on a malacha she'eina tzricha lagufa. Rav Yehuda says a malach shein tzricha legufa, you're chayiv. Rav Shimon says a malach shein tzricha legufa, you're potter. A malach shein tzricha legufa is that a malach is done in a case where a malach is done, but it's not done for a higher purpose. It's not done for a constructive purpose. If a person is doing the malacha to remove a negative, it's not that he was creating something that wants to create. He's removing a negative. So that's a malacha she'eina tzricha legufa. Rav Shimon holds that that's not the nature of the malacha. We learn out the malachas from the Mishkan. That's not the nature of the malachas of the Mishkan. The malachas that were done in the Mishkan were not to remove a negative. Over there was to create something creative and constructive, to create the Mishkan. So the malachas that are done were all for the purpose of a higher creation, was to build the Mishkan. Klal Yisrael wanted to create something over here. They wanted to build this Mishkan. That's the type of a malacha that you chayav for Shabbos. So if a person extinguishes the flame because he wants to preserve the oil, well, he's not creating anything in that way. Yes, it's true that he's getting a benefit from it. He's getting a benefit because he does not want to use up all of his oil, but it's not considered creative. He's not creating something with this extinguisher, with this keyboy. He's not creating anything more. He's not creating anything more that was there before. He's simply preventing the oil from being consumed, but it's not creating something a higher order of creation. He's not creating something in a constructive way, something that didn't exist before. Rosh Shimon says that even though he's mechaber, and even though it's not mekalkel in that sense, but it's a malach shein tzricha legufa, it's potter. It's not, there's no chiv deraisa, but it's also midrabanan, but there's no chiv deraisa, there's no chiv chatas, it's min Torah, it's not asur. Yehuda holds no, that it is, it's considered a malacha. He has a benefit from it, it's considered a malacha. So the Mishnah says chasal ner chasal Hashem psila that you're chayav. So apparently the Tanakam is going with the shita of Rav Yehuda. It's a malach shein tzricha legufa, and you're chayav for that. Now the question is, Rav Yossi, he differentiates between the ner, the shemen, and the psila. He says by the ner and the shemen you're potter, by the psila you're chayav. So frek the Gemara. Rav Yossi kiman svirle. Who does he hold like? If he holds like Rav Yehuda, malach shein tzricha legufa is chayav, it should be on all three of them. It should be on the ner, the shemen, and the psila. The ikar of Shimon svirle, that a malach shein tzricha legufa is potter, psila nami lifter, should be potter on the psila as well. Amar Ula la'olam Rav Yehuda svirle. Really, I'll tell you that he holds like Rav Yehuda. Okay, Savar Rav Yossi Seiser Almanas Livnis b'Mekayma have a Seiser. Almanas Livnis Shalei b'Mekayma have a Seiser. Really, I'll tell you, he holds like Rav Yehuda. So we understand by the psila that you're chayav, because even though it's extinguishing, mechabe is in a form, it's like demolishing. Now, he holds, the Gemara is saying that Ula says that when you're Seiser, the Rav Yossi holds demolishing that's one of the malachas in the Mishkan. One of the malachas in the Mishkan is Seiser, that they dismantled the Mishkan, and then they rebuilt it. So they dismantled the Mishkan almanas, that when they travel to their new destination, they will rebuild it. So it was dismantling for the purpose of rebuilding. That's considered a malacha. Rav Yossi holds it's only considered a malacha if you're rebuilding in the same place. If a person demolishes a house and he rebuilds on that same place, there we connect the demolition of the house with the rebuilding, and it's considered part and parcel of the act of rebuilding, which is considered a malachas machsheves. It's not considered, therefore, it's not viewed as a destructive act. It's viewed as a constructive act. It's therefore malachas machsheves. However, Ula says, or Rav Yossi says, if a person demolishes a house in one place and he takes the building materials and he's going to build it in another place, then we view it as two separate independent actions. There is an act of demolition, which is mekalkel, which are potter. and there's an act of binyan he builds later on, he's chayiv for the binyan. That's considered a tikkun, that's melachas machshavas. But if he's demolishing in one place, we don't connect it to the rebuilding. We view the demolition as an independent act, and that's purely destructive. That's mekalkel, and you're potter. So mechabe is in the same way. It's a form of demolishing. You're extinguishing, you're destroying the flame. So he holds, by definition, if a person doesn't care about the wick, what is the rebuilding? In this case, the rebuilding is lighting the flame again. Is igniting a flame. If a person doesn't care about the wick, so he's going to throw out the wick. Now, even if it happens to be that the nair is in the same place, it's irrelevant. Unless he's reusing the same wick, unless he's reusing the same psila, it's considered that he's mechaba, it's considered like he's soiser to rebuild in a different place. Because the place of the flame is the wick. If he's going to throw out the wick, the psila, if he's going to throw it out, and even if he's going to reuse the same oil, the same receptacle, the same nair, but that's considered soiser almanas livnei shaloi b'mekayma. Then we would look at the being mechaba as a destructive act, as mekalka. It's not considered that he's being soiser almanas livnais b'mekayim. However, the psila, if he has the wick, if he's reusing it to use the same wick, then that's soiser almanas b'mekayim. Then it's considered not a mekalkel. It's considered like rebuilding. It's considered malachas machshavas. So that's how he explains Rabbi Yossi. Really, he says he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that malach shein tzrich legufa you'd be chayav. And therefore you're chayiv on the psila because it's considered a malach, and you consider it to be that you're mechaba. But in mechaba, the difference between the nair and the shemen and the psila is not malach shein tzrich legufa. Malach shein tzrich legufa, Rula says, the Raisi says you're chayiv like Rabbi Yehuda. The difference is mechaba, that it has to be soiser almanas livneis b'mekayim. It has to be mechaba almanas lahadlik b'mekayim. The makam, the place of the flame is the wick. Unless you're using the same wick, it's not considered b'mekayim. Amarli Rabba Michti. What do you mean? How can you say this? Kol melechas yelfin olam mishkan. We learn out the source of the malchus is the mishkan. Now over there, they dismantled the Mishkan, they rebuilt it in a different place. They dismantled the Mishkan, they went on the travel, they traveled through the Midbar, they rebuilt it in a different place. So how can you say that Soiser has to be Davka Almanas Livas Bimekoima, it has to be in the same, rebuilding in the same place, and therefore Mechaba has to be relighting in the same place? Your source of the Malacha is the Mishkan, and in the Mishkan it was rebuilt in a different place. He says, no, over there, it's all considered the same place. It was all based on a tzivui Hashem. It was all part of the commandment of the Rebbeinu Shalom. When he said to rebuild it, he said to demolish and rebuild it in one place. It's considered as one. It's not two separate actions. It's coming from the Rebbeinu Shalom. So that's considered as they're following the tzivui of the Shem, that's considered as one part and parcel of the same act. It's demolishing in order to rebuild it according to the way that Rebbeinu Shalom wants. It's not an independent decision. It's part and parcel of it's all part of the Gzeir of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's considered b'mekayim. And another way of looking at it is the whole world is the makam of the Rebbeinu Shalom. There's no two independent, separate places from the perspective of looking at it from the tzivui Hashem. It's all one place. There's no constraint of time and place by the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's one approach in how to understand Rav Yossi. But Rav Yochanan, he has a totally different approach. He holds, Rav Yossi, he says, holds like Rav Shimon. Then Malacha she'ein tzricha legufa is potter. And therefore, chas ala ner chas ala shemen is potter. It's a Malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. So why is by the psila why you chayiv? Umay shna psila, kedamar v'amnuna v'tem ravada barava, hacha psila shetzarach lehava askina. What we're talking about over here, he says, by the psila, is specifically in the case where the psila has not been made yet, it hasn't been singed yet. Now, in order to make a proper psila, proper wick, you have to twist the material, and you light it first and make a charcoal on top. And then, after you do that, when you're ready to light the flame, then you have a proper wick, which the flame will ignite easily and quickly, and the flame will burn smoothly. So, extinguishing the flame from the wick, if it's a wick that has not been singed yet, it hasn't been burned yet, part of making of the wick is igniting it and being mechaber. And therefore he says, Rav Yossi is talking specifically in this case. It's a case where the psila has not yet been singed, it hasn't been made properly into a wick, and by doing this, by being mechabed, now you're creating the wick. So this is not a malach shein tzrich leguf anymore. Now you're creating something. You create the wick. So we're talking about a psila shetzarach lavas. Debahi afil Rav Shimon moida. Here Rav Shimon also be moida kamasakin mana. Because now he's creating the wick. He's misakin the mana, the kli. He's making the kli. And this latter pshat is meduik in the lashon of Rav Yossi in the Mishnah, because the Ktani shu oisa pecham. It says because he's making a coal. Because now that he's burned it and singed it and extinguished it, he now created the coal. He created that coal, which is now a malacha shetzrich legufa. V'lo Ktani minei shenasis pecham. And it doesn't say because it was made into a pecham. Shmami, no, you can see from it. Because in the way, the first pshat that we were learning, in the way that Ula was learning, then the pshat in Rav Yossi is that it's considered it's a malach she'ena tzricha legufa, but you're chayav because it's mechabe, it's sois ramas livnes b'mkaima. So then the wording should be is that it's sois ramas livnes b'mkaima because there was a pecha, there is a coal over there, and that coal will be reignited. You're going to light that again. So it's amanas livnes b'mkaima, but it doesn't say that. It says mipnei shu oisa because he's creating the pecha, meaning it was a psila that was not singed before, it was not created before. Now you're making it. That's mipnei shu oisa with the extinguishing of the flame. You're creating the coal, the coal on top. You're creating the psila, and that's a malacha shetzrich legufa. So even though Rav Yossi holds like Rav Shimon, but by the psila you're chayv because it's a malacha shetzrich legufa.